3, 2, 1. This is Dean Tedder with the Two Party Podcast. I'm on here with Dylan Ogline, and he is in Orlando right now, but he came from Pennsylvania, if I'm reading the story right. Just a young entrepreneur, started from the ground up at 14 years old with his first little business going. And he's here to kind of share some of those things with you. And then we're just here to have a great discussion about, him, his life. I might slip and throw some things in about myself. You never know. It's kind of what we do on the show. So Dylan, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you just kind of tell the audience who you are and what you're about.
Sure thing. Hey, thanks for having me so much, Dean. It's good to be here. Man, you call me a young entrepreneur. I'm not used to that anymore.
Yeah, I feel like at 45, my life's half over, so everybody's young now.
I'm 31, so I kind of feel like it's all going downhill. Like I
Right?
have trouble sleeping. It's like aches and pains. I'm not used to this, but I'm the founder of Ogline Digital. I own a digital marketing agency where we focus on direct response digital advertising solutions. And I also own a education company where I train and teach students how to start and grow their own digital marketing agency as well. That's what I got going on now. And I guess, Dean, I'll let you take it from there and ask me where do you want to go back to?
Sure. I want to just touch a little bit, and I did do some searching. I always do stalking I call it stalking on my desk.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, before pre-show we were talking. It seemed like you've been a little bit stalking.
And
that's okay. I approve it.
In Florida, you're in Florida, and in Florida, it's illegal to stalk. So, there's certain states that have laws against this, but I'm hoping for the sake of sanity and law enforcement that they understand I'm doing this for good nature. But I ran through some Google searches. I found medium.com, Dylan Ogline of Ogline Digital. 5 things I wish someone would have told me before I became a founder. Tell me about
I write that?
That's what I'm wondering. Did you write that?
There's a lot of content out there. I don't know which ones.
There's quite a bit. There actually, when I Googled, I was like, wow, like he's all over the place. This says.
Does it say it's by me?
That's what I'm looking at the bottom. It says they connect with me. Dylan Ogline, Facebook. It must be something. It's actually, no, it says written by Authority Magazine.
So I think that was written by me. Listen, I've written a lot of stuff, and then there's also, so I have a PR company, and they get me in publications. They're fantastic.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So tell me 5 things that you wish someone would have told you. Let's go ahead and hit on this article.
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot here. Let me pull up that article because I don't want to. Because when you write stuff like that, like you write like,
you can write specifics. I mean, I can go. Let me see here. I've got.
Was it even a list?
I've got them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Things do not need to be perfect. Okay. Yeah. I guess this is good business advice. I'm glad.
This is it. So, and I'm going to run backwards down these articles, so you might want to keep your page pulled up.
Oh, no. Again, I don't know what all. No, this one right here, I wrote this.
Good.
But some of them, they'll get, some of them that's not even from my PR company. People will write an article.
Right.
Sometimes they just mention me, or it's actually about me, which is weird. It's a weird feeling. But no, so number 1 is things do not need to be perfect. And I think for me personally, this is probably number 1. I'm naturally perfectionist.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I spent so much of my time, so many years suffering, getting absolutely nowhere with my business, getting nowhere with my life in general. It felt like, because everything had to be perfect. So now I teach people, like, be lean, mean, and scrappy with your business. Like, just throw stuff up, get stuff out into the marketplace. Not just if you're doing a digital marketing agency. It could be you have a podcast. You start a podcast. It doesn't need to be perfect. What matters is getting shit out, getting it out. It doesn't matter if it's a YouTube video. Start a YouTube channel. Doesn't matter if you're a writer. Get stuff out. Get it out tonight. Don't waste 6 months, a year writing the perfect version, getting your podcast just right, getting your YouTube videos just right. Because the truth is that it's going to be shit.
Right.
Your first version is going to be terrible no matter what.
And I find a lot of times you waste even more time on certain things that you want it to manifest and it won't. there's just certain things you want to be perfect, and you're like, I'm going to get this story out or this topic and I need it to go out and this is what I want, but it never seems to be just right. And you keep working on it, keep working on it.
It's never going to be perfect.
And there comes a time where you got to say to yourself, this is not meant to be, scrap it, get rid of it, you know?
Another thing that causes the perfection is a lot of people that use that podcast example. People will, who is the number one podcast? Is Joe Rogan number one?
Rogan, Bongino keeps bumping up, but I can't keep up anymore. There's thousands.
So look at Joe Rogan. I think he's on like show 1500 or 1600 or something. People will compare their beginner podcast to that. And I'll be like, I want the same audio quality. I want the same video quality. I want the same background. Yeah. They'll focus on all those things. And what they don't realize is that that's iteration 1500. Like, and it's not the background or the mic or the video quality that matters. It's actually the conversation.
Correct.
And the way he asks questions and the questions that he asks. He got better and better and better at his skill set of asking questions, of being an, what would it be? Interview? Being the person given the interview.
Hosting away.
And the only way he got that good is by doing it over and over and over again and beating on his craft. This is true in so many different, doesn't matter. Like I said, YouTube channel, podcast, doesn't matter. So your first version is going to suck.
Right.
It does not need to be perfect. Just get it out there. And the only way you can get to your 50th or your 100th or your 500th iteration and get better and better and better is by putting the first out there. And the first is always the hardest. So step one of that article was things do not need to be perfect.
Right. And number two is figure out product market fit as quickly as possible. And explain a little bit of that, because I mean, that to me, that makes sense, but maybe for the audience, they need to understand that a little differently.
Absolutely. So this is definitely just in regards to, the article was mostly about business, but this could apply with a podcast. So product market fit is simply, is there a need, a want, a desire in the market for my product or service? And am I solving that problem? Is there a problem and am I solving it? Yeah. That's basically it.
Plain and simple,
and you want to prove that as fast as possible. This plays hand in hand with things don't need to be perfect.
And time is money. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can get back money, but you can never get back time. And everybody's aware of this, but you just need to be beaten to your head.
Right.
Don't do that shit.
Yeah.
Don't spend 6 months, 12 months, a year building out a training program as an example. I talked to a writer 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Similar. I just was talking to her, and I gave her this advice. She had spent like 8 months, 10 months building out a training program. It was, I think, like a copywriting course to help fiction writers.
Yeah.
And then she realized that there was no market fit. So yeah, you want to figure that out as quickly as possible. And a cheat code, a hack to this is go to people. This is specifically of a product or service that you can sell. Go to random people and see if they're willing to give you money. Go to your ideal client and see if they're willing to actually give you a credit card.
Right.
Don't ask people, do you need this? Actually get their money.
Yeah.
They give you money, you have product market fit.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people may just think you're robbing them, but at the end of the day, as long as you don't use the gun when you're asking them for their money, it's okay. It's okay.
I've got, because I know you want to jump to number 3 here.
Oh, you're good.
Focus on in regards to that is I've heard people come back to me and say, well, that's kind of scammy.
No, not at all.
You want to be upfront with people.
Yes.
So let's use that training program example. She should have gone to potential fiction writers and say, this is the course I have, blah, blah, blah. Will you give me your money? Basically.
Yeah.
And if they say yes, say, okay, awesome. The course starts in 30 days.
I look at it like research and development, for say you're building a product, or say you're trying to patent a product, research and development, and in business, that is exactly what you're talking about. There's nothing scammy about it. You need to know who your clients are. You need to know who your investors are. You need to know 100%. Where your money is where your profit's going to come from. And if you don't have a market niche, if you don't have a market niche for that, you're a failure.
Yeah. And if you don't deliver, just refund their money. Correct. And apologize. Be like, hey, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. This happened. Here's your money back.
Yeah. And we hear more, it's more popular now than I ever remember growing up. these turnkey market, where people are just like, you can buy in, and people, there's new ideas. Let's say it's a new electric bike comes out, and so everybody's like, well, we need this much money. You could be the first to order one. We hear about these all the time. And people put their money up and they're like, I want the first bike, and so people put their money up front, and people are like, this has got to be a scam. And next thing you know, when all the research and development's done, the bike hits the market and you have your first bike. And it's like, that's becoming more popular now. I see that day in and day out with these new products coming out. And I think that's a really cool thing. It's a very easy, quick way to get investments and get things off the ground is by using other people's money. And I think at the end of the day, it's kind of like real estate. Who doesn't want to use someone else's money to purchase real estate?
Absolutely. Yeah. You could, especially if you have a product that you need to develop.
Mm-hmm.
If you have some kind of service,
it's a lot
necessarily buy as much
different.
because there's not typically a cost barrier to entry.
Yeah.
But if you're developing a product, literally have your potential customers fund the development is a fantastic idea, and it's not scammy. You're getting, you are solving a problem in the marketplace that obviously doesn't exist. If people are willing to buy your product or service, it's because that there isn't a solution elsewhere, or they haven't found it.
Yeah.
So if you have a solution and you have the idea and they're helping you develop it, that's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. And they also get to be the first to test the products. So they get to be the first to give feedback and say, hey, I don't know, this product sucked. Let's go to the round 2. Let's move to the next one. This one wasn't as great as we thought it would be.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and that's, that to me makes a lot of sense. And again, let's see, focus on high profit margin businesses.
That's number 3. Yes,
man, that to me, again, that's a no brainer. Like, I say this to my clients a lot, and I've had clients look at me like sideways, like what? But I've gotten to the habit after 27 years in construction. Somebody will come to me, I'll bid a job, $40,000, $50,000. I'll say, look, here's the deal. This is what it's going to cost me to do it. You can go. I always encourage every client, go get more bids. Don't just, I'm the first guy bidding. I'm not telling you my experience is going to be the one for you, the fit for you. Go get 3 more bids, then call me if my number fits. And I'll have clients go, man, that just seems a little high. And I'm like, okay, so here it is. I have been doing construction 27 years. I'm not in this for practice. I'm in this for profit. And they look at me and they're like, he's dead serious. He just said that to me.
That's good. I'm in this for profit, not practice.
Yeah. Like if I wanted to practice, I'd go back to when I was 18, 19, a young stud with good muscles and strength and a good back. And I'd go back to those days where I didn't mind swinging a sledgehammer all day. But if I'm going to come to your job for $40,000 at 27 years experience and 44 years old, and I'm physically fit, but let's be real. I in no way, shape, or form want to go swinging a sledgehammer all day today. So if I'm going to go do it, I dang sure better be making profit on it. My company better be, all my bills should be paid for the day for my company. My employees' paychecks should be paid for that day, and I should make some extra money for me and my family. Absolutely. And that's kind of how I see. That's how I see number 3 there.
Yeah, and you also end up not the people that are looking for the cheapest solution tend to not be the best clients.
Exactly.
I've had very, very little experience.
They seem to be more problematic.
They seem to be more demanding. No matter what, they're never
can't satisfy
happy.
them. Yep.
You cannot satisfy them. And the truth is, like, so many people that get caught in thinking, why I need to lower my prices. No matter what, you're not going to get 100% of the marketplace. So even if your solution was free, even I've used this example before. If you sold vehicles, you're GM and you sold vehicles, even if you gave away a free vehicle, there will still be a certain percentage of the market that is not interested. Yeah. That a certain percentage of the market wants the Rolls Royce, wants the Bentley, wants the Lamborghini.
And that's all they're focused on.
And the money doesn't matter. So no matter what, you're not going to get 100% of the market. Nobody gets 100% of the market. So it's much better to focus on where you can get the highest profit margin. And the very, very rarely is at the low end of the market. It's better to be at the medium to high end of the market. Those people are looking to pay to solve a problem. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10,
I've had clients. Yeah, I've had clients literally tell me like, hey, you're here, you have the tools. Can you just do this real quick? And I'm like, sure, I can. What's the incentive for me to pull these tools out of my truck and physically hop over here and risk my general liability insurance on your property to do the job? What is it worth it to me? Oh, well, I'm going to throw you all kinds of work in the future. You're going to get all kinds of work. And back in the day, in my younger days of doing construction,
you probably did it.
I did it. I was like, man, I'm going to seal the deal. This is like a sales for me. I'm going to get this if I just go over here and do this project real quick. And, at the end of the day, maybe 50-50, you got that client to call you back, or it became a problem, even doing them the favor. And so it's kind of one of those, like I've learned over the years, it's just not worth it. If it's not for profit and it doesn't profit the business, it doesn't further my business and help the advancement of my business. Then again, like you just mentioned, that client's probably not the fit for my company. It's probably not worth it. We do right now, we do a lot of, we work with about a dozen property management teams across Tulsa. So we get everything from a small shower remodel all the way, from other clients that we have, we do more of ground up builds. But with the property management teams, it could be anything from a doorknob change out for a service call, all the way up to like gut this kitchen and redo it because we got to get this rented. And we deal with just one of the 12 companies we deal with is 200 homes across Tulsa. So I mean, there's 200 homes that we're maintaining at all times, and that's one company. That's a lot
of work.
Yeah, and that's one company. So it's one of those like you said. I mean, if that client's not a fit for us, and we have some property management teams that have stepped to us, and we're like, we're not going to work with you because they're just A, they don't want to pay the money out. B, there's always a problem. It's always never good enough, or they have projects that they don't want to invest enough money in. They want these rentals, but these rentals are in bad areas, so they just don't want to fix them because they know the next tenant's going to destroy it. And unfortunately, we won't put our company name on it. It's like, I'm not going to come in and Band-Aid or do a handyman job.
Do the cheap stuff.
Yeah, I'm not doing the handyman job when you need an actual contractor like us to do it right. And then they're like, well, can you just do it for $150? Maybe patch those tiles? No, we don't. That's just not something we want our company name on.
You'll also find, especially in contractor type work, and I don't mean just construction. I mean, it can be graphics design or web design, like you're doing contract type work. You can find that you end up getting price trapped.
Yeah.
So, you go to that client that in the beginning, you're trying to get work, and that person's like, just do this job for me real quick. And you do it for $10 an hour, but your rate's actually $20 an hour. Well, you're never going to get $20 an hour from that customer.
They're never even going to meet you halfway
because you already did something for $10 an hour.
And that's where they value you at.
Exactly. And then you're sitting there in your head, you're thinking, well, maybe they'll refer me to other people and my network will grow this way. Well, in 9 times out of 10, the case is when somebody's referring a contractor, the first question, if they see somebody who, put in a kitchen or built their website, the first question is, who did it?
Yep.
The second question is, how much did they charge?
Yeah. Was it affordable?
How much did they charge? And if they say, it was $150, it took them about 10, 15 hours. So, he charged me $10 an hour. All your referrals from that client are now going to be thinking in terms of $10 to $15 an hour, or whatever your rate is. So you end up in what I call price trap situation where you can't get out of your price because it's very difficult to, especially if you really undercut yourself, it's really difficult to raise your rates.
And we get, I see it time and time again. We'll have subcontractors that'll work for us. They'll come in and they'll bid jobs. And I even say to my subs sometimes, like they'll come in and they'll bid really low on a job. And the client's like, yeah, we want him to do it. And I know the quality of that sub's work because I've used them. And I'm like, I've got a guy that's a little better than that. He's going to charge a little more, but you're going to get the quality product you want. This guy does a cheaper job, but you're also getting what you pay for, and I'll tell them that. And sometimes when they get the bid, I'll tell them, I'll say, okay, they want you to do the job. Why don't you raise your price a little? Tell them another 100 because I think it's worth it. Because after 27 years of doing construction, I've done their work and I know the scope of work they're fixing to get their butts into. And I'll say it. I'll be like, hey, you need to mark that up a little bit because I'm telling you right now, by Friday you're going to be cussing that you bid it for this price. And we do, and we'll adjust things like that. So again, I try to lead by example and try to help some of these guys that are maybe not as experienced in the sales end of it or just experienced in bidding it. And I try to tell them like, this is what it's worth, because if you undercut our industry, then everybody across the board is going to be making no money. So I try to keep them at the same level. And that's hard to do because every day you have a new construction guy or handyman coming out who's going to underscore everything because he wants work.
Yeah. Well, but the truth is those people that are the cheap end solution, sure, they might get a bunch of work, but then their quality is going to be shady, and everybody's going to be like, I don't want to work with that person.
Yep.
And I would still argue the person, the customer, the client who is looking for the cheapest solution, you probably don't want to be working.
No, that's a disservice to themselves, really.
Yes, 100%.
So then
number
we've got four is say no.
No.
I mean, hey,
we
there
just
you
talked
go.
about that. Yeah.
Right into it. Who wrote this? This is great.
It's a really good article. Wow. Yeah, he needs to like win an award for this. Wow,
So say no is pretty common sense. I mean, it's literally, there's times in business where, and I know for prime example, I'm really good and I'm open and I love people and I can really, I love helping people. But there comes a point where I am very stern about, nope, not interested.
I think I teach people, niche down, get very specific so that you get better and better at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was giving advice to contractors, like general construction contractors, I'd be like, focus on one specific thing, like just do roofs,
right?
Or just do driveways, or just do kitchens, or just do bathroom remodels. And the people who come in and they're, you say you do driveways and they're like, hey, can you do a pool for me? The answer should be no.
Yeah.
Because if you only do kitchens, you're going to get better and better at doing kitchens.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to deliver better quality. You're going to be able to increase your rates. You're going to, your systems, your processes get better and better.
Yeah.
I know construction's a little bit more complicated and a little bit more difficult, but in my industry,
the framework is all the same. I mean, it's all the same.
If you're reinventing the wheel every time,
it's non-productive.
You don't really know what you're doing. You don't get better at what you're doing. If you're teaching your team to one day pour a driveway, the next day to do a kitchen, the next day to do a pool, nobody's
it's not very productive.
Better.
Yeah, it's not very productive.
Think of like Chipotle. I'm a big Chipotle fanboy.
I love them.
I don't go into Chipotle. If you went in there and you were like, I need a lobster.
Yeah.
They don't sell lobster.
They're gonna be like, well, then you need to go down the road.
Yeah, go to Red Lobster or go to one of these other restaurants. If you were like, hey, I want a salmon in my burrito, it'd be like, we don't sell salmon.
Yeah, can I get a grilled cheese?
Yeah,
they'd be like, what do you want me to wrap that up? I mean,
yeah. So, but so many small business owners, they get in this mindset, which is understandable in the beginning. Whenever you're trying to make ends meet, you're trying to take all the work, but in the end, it's a disservice for you. If you could just stick to one or two main things, one service,
the one you can produce the most quality. I mean, especially in construction, if whatever it is that you can specialize in, that you can do the best quality. If you're a trim carpenter and you do the best trim and crown molding, that's all you should be doing.
It's also, but I think go back to what was that guy's rule number 3? Focus on high profit margin. Yeah, don't do driveways. If driveways, I don't know anything about driveways, but if they're a low profit margin business, you probably don't want to be the best at that. You want to focus on the blend of what is something that I feel like I would be good at, or I have an interest in, and something that's high profit margin. If you can combine those two things, you got gold and you got a successful business, no doubt about it.
Yeah, for sure. And then we've got, it's okay to take an evening off. And this one, every business I've built, and like I told you, we talked before the show, I've owned landscaping business, 3 of them, built them up from the ground up. Built them up, sold them. I think the last one I sold was $270,000. Came with the trucks, trailers, the whole nine. Sold the whole business. Got out of it. I was sick of doing it. I was sick of weed eating, sick of mowing, sick of looking at grass, and I just got rid of that last one. And so every business I've been involved in that I've started from ground up, there's a process, and I always know when I jump right in head first to a business and want to start a new business, and I've done it so many times, and I don't know why. I think I just do it like self-induced torture. But I do, and I do. It's that 7-year. I do it, and I'm like, you know what? I need some self-induced torture. I should go start a business in an industry I have no knowledge in, and I will just jump into stuff. And so, literally, the one thing I've learned at this point in life is that every business I've built, there is that beginning hardship where you literally got to work. You have to build the business, which means you have to do the work. You can hire everybody you want to hire to do the work and implement different jobs and positions to each person to handle things. But there will always be a point where your vision of your business will still be your baby. And you still have to do the work, which means sometimes late night after 5 o'clock. I've had my wife tell me multiple times, you tell everybody not to call after 5. And it's like, they're going to call me at 8. They're going to call me at 9. They're going to call me at 11 o'clock when some other subcontractor decides to work at night. It's just part of a business. And when you get a business up and growing, what I've learned is that there's about, I like to call it now, I've scaled it back from 2 years to 1 year. And there's usually that 1 year period where you just know everything and all of your time day in and day out is going to be consumed by building the business. And you're going to have to put that work in, and it's going to be an around the clock thing. And it is hard to take an evening off.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason I think this guy put this in this article.
This guy is a genius. I'm telling you.
It's a really good article.
I mean,
tell you, man. I mean,
he's a genius.
Yeah, it's really well written. Let me tell you.
I'd say he's got some experience in the business world.
In writing or something, yeah.
And writing.
This guy must write really good copy, really good landing pages and sales pages. For me, a lot of people are getting more into creative work, and when you're doing creative work, you need to be 100%. You can't be 50% and deliver good quality. There are certain businesses, sales comes to mind, where you can just beat it, like work 100 hours a week and just ruthlessly work your way to success. But there are some industries, some professions, writing comes to mind, where yes, you need to put in the hours, but just sometimes you just need to take that day off. You need to take that evening off to let your mind recuperate. It's not about putting in your brutal body effort. It's more about your mental effort, which is it's just, and it's becoming more and more common as we become more of a digital society. I think it's, your generation, what are you, Generation X, I think?
Oh, I gave up. I gave up.
You're before millennials.
Yeah.
Your generation,
I'm X or Z or something. I don't know. They don't know. No,
I think
we are.
Z's.
Oh yeah,
Z's
no, we're
after
X.
Millennial.
Are we Y? I don't know. We're somebody.
No, I think Y got skipped. Y is the millennial generation.
I don't know. So, I know I'm not the baby boomer guy.
Yeah, you're between baby boomers and millennials.
Yeah, we're like those guys.
Yeah. So my brother's in that same generation, and he has the same mindset of like just work 1,000 hours a week, and that's how you make a business work. And that it's certainly admirable. It's there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. I just think it's more for those types of businesses that were built during that generation, during the baby boomer generation. Now that we're with my generation,
there's ways to delegate things.
There's ways to delegate things. You're doing, you need, it's more mental.
Yeah. So you have to have a reset time.
You have to. And when I say mental, I don't mean like we're smarter or something.
Right.
It's just, it changed.
Yeah.
If you're an artist, you need to do things differently than somebody who's building kitchens.
Yeah.
Or a truck driver. It doesn't mean one's smarter than the other. It's just a different way of doing work. And for me, like my family and everybody surrounding me was from that generation. Was what you
got to get out there and work, Dylan.
Exactly.
You're like, oh wait, I can really do this.
Well, for me, what happened was I got burnt out, and I wasn't good. I wasn't getting better at at the things I wanted to get better at, and for years, people were like, "Dude, you just need to take a night off, like get some sleep." And I was like, no, man, I just gotta work.
Keep on going. Keep on
going. And there's a certain element. I mean, this is an art, not a science, by all means. There's a certain element of you have to have the work ethic. You have to put in.
There's a balance, a good balance.
There is a balance, but there's a lot to be said of like, if you want to produce good quality creative work, you got to be well rested. You got to have your mind in the right space. And if you don't, you're not going to deliver quality.
Yeah. So. And I would 100% agree with that. And it's another one of those things like, physically, when you do a physical job, you need a lot of rest. Your body needs to recoup. And that's to be said for, even on a physical job, that's to be said for the mental, but when you work, like you said, the creative stuff, You do a lot of media stuff. I mean, your brain, that's all you're doing is just tweak, 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 tweak all day long on your brain. You got to rest your mind too. And sometimes that's a matter for me, resting my brain is, I wake up every morning faithfully and I go immediately and start working out. And I do a 2-hour workout, no matter what body part. Yeah, yesterday my wife left to take my son to jiu-jitsu, and she left. And then 2.5 hours later, they came back and I'm in there. I started with shoulders and then she comes back and I'm finishing up on arms. And this is 2.5 hours later. And I'm kind of talking to one of my friends down in Florida, down in Tampa, and he's kind of giving me some advice on some stuff. And so we're literally like 2.5 hours, and that's my morning. And then I go from that to my workout or to work, and then I start my day off working like that. And that, to me, that's become a good schedule for me that gets me on a good plane. But when I just want to like take a break from everything, I do. I take the phone, everything's got to be put on hold. And I don't want to think about things. And I'm building like a little VW Baja bug. So when I want to get away from the world, I'll just go out in the driveway and start tweaking and working on my bug. And then I don't have to think about work. I don't have to think about, stress. I don't have to think about all the nonsense. I can literally just be in a moment. And so I always encourage, like, with things like this, it could be take an evening off. It could be have a hobby, have something that's healthy to do that is not related to your work, that's not related to the things that are going to mentally wear you.
Yeah, I also think I like what you said about like you working on your VW. Because my entire working world is on this computer.
Yep.
I think a lot more people are becoming that way. Having something physical is hugely important. Like I really discourage people who they're like me, their entire world is digital, and then they go game or something, right? And they're like, because you're still in that digital world. Yep. So like me, I'm building a coffee table right now out of my old hockey sticks.
Yeah. Now that's cool.
Yeah. And it's physical. There's sure, you're using your mind on it a little bit, but I'm touching it.
Yeah. And when you're doing it, you're physically visioning and thinking about the project, which takes you away from, I guess, the projects of life. It takes you away from business, work, family, gives you that minute. My wife's like, you can't forget about us. And I'm like, I'm not. But at that moment when I'm working out here doing the hobby stuff, like of course I'm thinking about you guys. But at the end of the day, I'm really focusing on picturing myself in this Baja bug off-roading this spring and jumping this thing over some dunes and stuff. And so, it's one of those things. It's healthy to have a hobby. It's healthy to step outside of where our comfort zone is. And if our comfort zone, I know for me, for many years, I burnt myself out working and business-wise because I wouldn't step. That was my comfort zone. That was all I knew is I had to work. I had to make money. This is who I was, what I was. And I got burnt out on it. And so it took me a minute to step out of that comfort zone and say, look, work's not your comfort, even though you're comfortable in it and that's your zone, get out of it and slack off a little bit. And there was a few years there that's what I did. I just said, I'm going to slack off a little bit. I probably won't make a lot of money this year, but you know what? I'm going to have fun. And I did that for a while. And while, I don't always encourage everybody, some people just aren't wired that way. I did it. It was good for me. I took a break from everything.
If you do the same thing over and over and over again, you're gonna get burnt out. It doesn't. Yeah. It could be working out. If you work out 12 hours a day, you're going to get burnt out, and your body's gonna fall apart.
Yep.
Same thing for your mind. If you do the same thing, if you sit in front of that computer 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, nonstop, sure, you might think it's a badge of honor, but you will fall apart. And long before you even fall apart, your quality is going to dip. Yeah. So find that sweet spot. I'm really big into the 80-20 method, focusing on the 20% of your efforts that are going to give you 80% of the results. So you reach a certain point where you get diminishing rates of return. In the beginning, your rates of return are good, and then they start to drop.
Yep.
And you need to just figure out what that sweet spot is in every area of your life.
Yeah.
It could be working out. It could be family time. It could be work. It could be your hobby. If you do your hobby 12 hours a day, you're going to get bored at it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those, like, how many bugs can I fix and buy and crash?
You need to find that balance.
Yeah. And hobbies, I used to build bikes and motorcycles, stuff like that. I love wrenching. I love just doing gearhead stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, no matter what point in life I've been and what portion of my life I was going through ups and downs, there was always an outlet. I always try to have an outlet. Lately, the past 2 years, it's literally been, I've been doing a lot more weightlifting than I've ever done in my life. And so that's become my newest, I guess, addiction. But it's really like, I've always had a hobby. There's always been, whether I was building V-twin bikes or I was building, bugs, or back in the day, I've owned a million. I forgot how many cars I've owned. I mean, that's back in the day. I was just really into cars, and that's how I buy them, I've sold them, I've crashed them, I've raced them, I've traded them title for title in races. It just became a thing where like I've always had a hobby. It's always been something. When I was into computers, when I got my computer engineer degree, I opened my computer repair business. I did that for many years. I was smart enough that when I saw tablets and the new technology coming out, I saw the market change to where people weren't repairing anymore. And I was a little bit ahead of the curve, and I saw it and I said, man, these tablets come out, they're a danger to our industry. I need to sell. And at that time I had a friend of mine that was working for me. He's a retired Tampa police officer. And he was like, look, and I told him, I stepped to him that morning. I said, look, man, I see a market trend. I'm going to get out of this before I lose my ass. And he goes, what do you mean? I was like, I'm going to sell. I'm closing down. He goes, whoa. I'm retired. I'm not going back to work, and I can't sit home. He said, could you please sell it to me? Solution. I said, yeah, you can have it. You can literally, I think I sold it to him for I think I gave everything, equipment and all to him. There was like 5 separate repair benches with all the equipment. And I was like, $175,000, it's yours. And he paid me, and he was so happy. He was the happiest guy I ever saw in my life. He just didn't want to go home and sit at home with his wife in retirement and have nothing to do but stare at the wall. He's like, I'll probably drink myself to death before I can make it through retirement that way. And so he wanted to just. Is the business still running? It is still running. Yeah. Wow. I forget what he changed the name to now. He's changed the name several times. The funny thing is, when I sold it to him, all the clients, everybody that ever brought computers to me, they hated him. He was just he was a retired sheriff. He did homicide. He's very, very cold. Like, the guy just has no real personality. He's a very analytical thinker. And so people would come drop stuff off, and he was just like, yeah, just set it on the counter, just no customer service whatsoever. So everybody would tell me, is he okay? Like, what's wrong with that guy? You might need to find someone else. Because he's a little gruff. And I'm like, and he always had his gun on his hip. So people were all kind of a little intimidating when they come in. And I'm like, I know. He's an ex-cop. That's just his mindset. That's who he is. Like he's John Wayne. Okay. Just picture he's John Wayne hanging out in the computer shop. And that was kind of his, it was just his thing. And so when I was sold, and I made the announcement to all the clients, I said, look, we're selling the shop. It's going to go right over to the guy who's been working with me, basically my partner at this time. I said, I'm going to go ahead and sell out to him, and you guys will, same quality repair, because he's the one that's been doing your work anyhow. Every one of them's like, I got to find another shop. I can't. And so I told him up front, I said, you're probably going to lose a bunch of business. And even after I handed it over to him, I still had customers calling me directly saying, look, can you just do mine at home? Can you just repair mine at home? It's not that they didn't trust him. They just didn't like his attitude and his personality. But yeah, he ended up having some problems, and he changed the name once, and then he had some more problems and changed the name again, but he's still operating it. I think he's like he's probably like 71 now, 72.
That's still going. Now.
Yeah. And that's what I told him. I said, it's not going to get easier. You're going to lose money. And I think the first round of troubles he had was when tablets and everything, there was a period, I want to say about a 2-year period, where nobody would repair a computer because it was cheaper to buy one. And then everybody got into tablets. So it was like, if you don't have a tablet, who are you? And I told him that. And I think that was around that 2-year period that he just lost his butt and made no money. And
now the screen repairs, I see those, like iFixit.
Everywhere. Yeah, you go on Craigslist, people are fixing screens. Yeah, it's scary. But I got out of it. But I'll tell you, when I did it, I got into that because it was really a hobby of mine. I loved messing with electronics. I've always, since a young age, I'd take stuff apart, put it back together, try to think I was making it better.
So now your next business is going to be VW, Bug dealership.
I actually, like I was telling you earlier, my resume is crazy. I've actually owned an automotive shop. So
not surprised. As
much as I would love to go just focus on VWs because I love them, I don't think I want to go down the mechanic road anymore. I'm just kind of burnt out on.
Well, I love it as a hobby. Do a dealership. You're not doing.
Oh yeah.
You're not a repair shop. You're just the dealership.
I could do that. I could fix them up, customize them, put them for sale, and just do
Boom.
it that
There
way.
you go. That's the next business right there.
It's one of those, like, I don't know. It's just, again, hobby and outlet for me. And it's probably the things that have kept me sane, to be honest with you, having that outlet outside of business, having just something to do where my mind can just rest. And my mind is, like, I'm one of these people that I'm a thinker. And so my mind never stops. I mean, I feel like sometimes when I'm sleeping, I don't dream a lot. My wife's always like, yeah, you must have been dreaming last night. Sometimes I'll literally, there's been times I'll be laying in bed and I'll be thinking about one of our projects and a problem on the project. And I'll wake up the next day with the solution. And I'm like, my brain never stopped. I went to sleep and I was still thinking the project, and I woke up and the problem was solved.
There's a book
horrible.
I started on that. It's similar to like lucid dreaming, where you think about the problem really specific, and then you go to sleep, and then boom, you have the solution.
When people say sleep on it, it's like it's worked for me, because
literally
my mind
you can
never
do that,
shuts off. It just keeps
Do
going.
you meditate at all?
Meditation to me is no. I need to. I do try. I do take moments in the morning, whether it's before I work out or even during my workout. Sometimes I will take moments to myself and stop and reflect on what's going on, and just silence and just peace. And so I guess
that's why your workouts take so long. I'm thinking you're hitting the weights for like 2 hours.
No,
you're meditating.
I'm laying on the
hour.
bench. I'm laying on the bench, just
Yes, that's what's going on. Okay.
But I do take reflective moments throughout the day, whether it's in the morning, during workout, or even after workout. I do take time for myself. That's just something I've always encouraged everybody. But for me, it took me a long time to reach that point. Probably I started doing that in the past, like maybe a year and a half, 2 years, where I've really made it a dedicated thing where I need to stop, step back, focus, and then have peace and quiet to really just enjoy that moment.
Yeah.
And so I have, but as far as like actual, like dedicating, this is 15 minutes of time I need to meditate, I have not done that, because I think I'm just like adult ADD or something sometimes,
If credit to whoever said this quote, if you can't meditate for, I think it's like 5 minutes.
Right.
The quote's like, if you can't meditate for 5 minutes, that means you need to meditate for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's
so true. It's so
Tim
true.
Ferriss calls it the monkey mind. Like your mind's always bouncing around. And I can 100% relate to that. Meditation, like, I absolutely cannot recommend it enough. Like, it's so much of it. It made a huge impact on that, constantly bouncing around, thinking about different things.
Yeah.
So I do like 15 to 20 minutes every morning.
Yeah. It's a good thing. Everybody, you're probably at least the 8th or 9th person that I've interviewed that said the same thing, that like they literally focus on meditation now. And it's changed their lives. It's just that having that moment to reflect has really changed them.
Yep. And I highly recommend for me, I had a trouble like sticking to it, building that habit. I have, downloaded the Calm app. Yep. So I think I just have the free version. I didn't pay for it or anything yet. But you can, I just use like the self-guided, so I'm not using the guided ones. But the whole reason I recommend it is it tracks it so you get a streak.
Okay.
And let me tell you, man, that streak, I have like a 570-day streak going.
Yes.
I'm addicted to, like, I will not let that streak end. And that is simply what it was.
But if that's all it is, and you get that streak and that's what you're shooting for, that is even more of a reason to have that health. To have that sanity. That's cool.
But it like some days I'm like, I really don't have time, but I'm like, man, I'm not going to break my streak. So I will
keep it going. Keep it going.
Because I don't want to. Yeah. So that's what built the habit for me.
And I had a guy on, I guess, I want to say about a month ago, and he made a very good point. He said, meditation looks different for everybody. He goes, the typical, the formal way that everybody thinks of meditation is like kind of like a yogi and stuff. And you're just kind of doing your thing. And he goes, meditation's different for everybody and can be. He's like, you can be meditating in the middle of, a business meeting. You could be at your desk working and take a moment. And really all it is a moment to, he explained it like, taking time to meditate can be something as much as just shutting out the world around you. And even when you're in focusing the things you're doing, he said, you're not getting that complete piece of meditation, but he said, you can be like we were talking about with weights, and he goes, you can be working out and that can be your meditation. That can
Absolutely,
be your
man.
peace. And it was really interesting, the perspective he put on meditation, because people don't, I guess a lot of people, the cliche, it's meditation. This guy must be sitting around and, Indian style on the floor doing, singing Psalms or something. And it to each their own, and for me, it really is just a couple moments of peace and quiet, a couple of moments to reflect. I do sometimes when I'm traveling to and from jobs or projects, if I'm on the highway or something, like that's my moment, always keep my eyes open, of course, but I'll turn off the music and I'll just be cruising. And that's my moment to reflect. I get peace and quiet. I'm alone. And I can really reflect on the vision of what the day is going to be, what the days should be, where I want to go.
Yeah, just hitting that like pause button for a little bit, huge mental health benefits, man. 100%.
So we were talking a little bit earlier about so small town in Pennsylvania. What town in Pennsylvania were you from?
A small little farming town called Somerset.
Somerset. How far is that from Allentown, or what's the other one right there? There's Allentown, Emmaus.
I don't know where Emmaus is, and I'm really messing up my Pennsylvania geography here. It's Eastern Pennsylvania, correct?
Eastern, I believe so.
Then I think it's I think there's Allentown, and there's a farmer's market that me and my girlfriend went to once in that area.
Yeah.
So I think it's like 2 hours.
Yeah.
About 2 hours away.
I mention it because when I was younger, I had a friend that stayed out there, my buddy Brad Kingston. Him and his family lived out there, and they moved out there from Florida, and I went to visit them one time, and same thing as my Oregon story, man. I went out there and it was wintertime, snow and miserable. I don't know. I always picked like the worst times to go travel and visit someplace. And so I end up in like Emmaus and Allentown, and I come to find out that I'm like, Brad, what do we do here? And it's wintertime, and I'm like, what do you do? Everybody lives in basements. I was like, this is weird. Like everybody in Pennsylvania live in basements. He's like, well, every house has a basement.
Doesn't have basements.
Right. And I'm like, this isn't normal. And he's like, oh, all we do, we just go to the pub. We go to work, we go to the pub. And I'm like, that's it? I think that's what we do up here. And he goes, yeah, you watch sports and you go to the pub. And I'm like, yep. And that I stayed with him for like 2 or 3 weeks up there. And that's all we did. It was go to the pub, drink, go to work with his dad. And then we'd come back and crash in the basement. And then we'd wake up and do it all over again. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is like, I couldn't do this. This is the Pennsylvania is just not the place for me.
It's where I'm from is I'm trying to think of
a little different.
Well, where I'm from, it's like farming and hunting, and if you're not hunting or farming or working in the coal mines, you're looked down upon. So
right.
I stuck out as like a sore thumb. Like people really thought there was something wrong with me, or I was lazy.
You're like, I just want out of here.
or I was a drug dealer because I worked at home. Like,
right.
How do you make money at home?
Yeah.
You're selling drugs.
Right.
That's what it is.
It's like, well, is anybody coming over? No.
Like the only thing I'm growing in my house is like organic kale.
See guys, I am a farmer.
I am growing the greens. So
yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, you don't work at home. I stuck out like a sore thumb. My brother still makes fun of me. He doesn't consider me a working. He says I'm not a working man.
Right.
Which is I don't think I put that in an article, but an article that was written about me. I did an interview and I mentioned the working man thing.
Yeah.
But that's just
it's a huge contrast from what we, traditionally what we picture how the work and business has gone over the years. Our parents, our grandparents, traditionally, work was all meant to physically you had to be a man and this is what you had to do to provide.
Tend to the field or work in a factory.
And nowadays, technology and just innovation has just changed the dynamics of the workforce to where there's just so many alternatives to doing that. There's still a need for those industries. Obviously these things don't get produced and made, but without somebody's hands, machinery can only do so much. But at the end of the day, our innovation, our business innovation and industries have changed so much to where there's a big dynamic shift of the physical nature of business and work in general. My dad was a huge work ethic guy. He was the physical guy. You got up, I'll put it this way. My dad we would get off school. You had to have your homework done. As soon as your homework was done, my dad would drop you at a job site with one of his friends and tell them to work you to death. And when they were done with you, he would come get you. So sometimes I'd get my homework done right after school, 3-4 o'clock. My dad would drop me at a job site and I'd work till 9 o'clock doing drywall or whatever it was. And he'd come pick me up, and then I'd go shower, go to sleep, go to school, start it all over again. And my mom and dad were divorced, so I always hated staying at my dad's because that's what it was. My dad was, you have to work to stay under my roof. That was just the guy he was. Yeah. And that didn't mean.
But now you have good work ethic, right?
Right. But he didn't care about age, 13, 14, you're going to work. That was just my dad. There was no like, well, there's laws that say at 15. My dad was like, 13, get up and get out of the house and go to work.
Get the hell to work.
Yeah. And if not, you need to go mow lawns in the neighborhood. That was just him. You never, my dad did not allow laziness. He was very gruff. He was a very, 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 first off, he was a very dysfunctional man, but he was very aggressive to the point where, you don't come in dad's house with your shoes on. You didn't come in and change the channel. If you change the channel on my dad, you'd find yourself out front, laid out in the driveway. He was just it was his way, his household. That's how he was raised. Mm-hmm. And he tried to put that down. And I've got, half and step brothers, and we have a couple adopted, but about 11 brothers and sisters total in our family growing up.
It's a big family.
From different dynamics and different dysfunctional backgrounds. So really chaotic. But my dad always did instill that work ethic. And my mom, when
it's
they
important, man.
Yeah. And when they divorced, my mom, she went as a single mother, she went back to school, put herself back to school for nursing. She became the first woman firefighter in Veneta, Oregon. She pushed herself beyond limits, which set another example for me and my sister directly. And so it's very interesting to see how things have shifted and changed when you look at just overall business and industry.
And I think it's going to continue.
Yeah.
It's things are going to, the only thing that doesn't stop changing is change,
complacency. Yeah.
Complacency. Yeah. People are worried about the future. And I'm like, listen, things are going to continue to change, and the pace is going to change more and more and more.
Yeah.
COVID just ramped everything up to a 10.
As far as like virtual industry, your industry, creative industries, I think what we're going to see at the end of this pandemic is that these industries are going to peak. These industries are really going to do good because of the pandemic.
Oh, 100%. We had our best year ever.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's a lot of people who are suffering, but it's like we just so happen to be in the type of industry that
thrives under this.
That thrived under this kind of stuff. And I hear a lot of people that they're scared of the changes, and I'm like, listen, like it's not changing to this certain thing. Like it's changing. It's going to continue to change. I don't know what the future is going to hold. I think it's going to become more and more digital. I was talking to my neighbor the other day about commercial real estate.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, like people going to office spaces, strip malls,
it's
stuff like that.
People still do that?
Yeah. Who small businesses, shops in a strip mall, like that's done.
Yeah. And I've been saying that for probably the past year. Is brick and mortar has really gone. We do a lot of commercial build outs, and we have business owners step to us, and every time I'm trying to keep a straight face when they're like explaining their vision and their business plan and what they want to build and how they want us to construct it. And I'm literally sitting there with it, trying to keep not show my expression on my face of like, you're going to be here for 6 months to a year and you're going to fail.
Yep.
And it's sad to have to be that way and think that way. But each person has their dream and their vision, and they want to build something, and that's how they want to do it. And, even like here in South Tulsa, there's a little community, which is where my house is Bixby, Oklahoma. It's a predominantly used to be like kind of a farmland sod area. It's one of the fastest developing communities in Oklahoma, and it's all money. Everybody here, it's money. There's people from all kinds of backgrounds. And since they legalized medical marijuana, it's even bigger industry now there. But Bixby as a whole, there's so many businesses here, but they're not brick and mortar. There's so many people that have deep, deep pockets, and not one of them has a storefront or an office.
Yep.
And it's because, and I've seen that trend just continue, and if you watch down the major highway, all, like you said, all the strip malls, you see them emptying out. They have for lease signs all the way down the highway. And then the closer you get to this one community, it's like, where are the businesses? Why is this such a thriving community, but there's no businesses?
Because everybody works at home.
Everybody's digital.
I do think that there's certain businesses that are going to, we are still social creatures.
Yeah. So there's some that will outperform. Yeah.
Like right now, restaurants are hurting, and you have like food delivery and stuff like that. But I still see, if everybody's working from home, we're still going to have the desire to see other people.
Correct.
It used to be you would go to work and be surrounded by people, and then you'd want to go home and be alone. Like everybody wants that balance.
Now it's kind of a reverse.
Now it's going to be reversing, and so I think gyms, people like fitness classes, restaurants, those sorts of businesses, right now with COVID might be particularly hurting.
Yeah.
But I think if more people are working at home, they're going to want some kind of social interaction. So I see those businesses thriving going forward. But commercial office spaces, strip malls where people have why would you have a shop selling shoes when the most you can do is serve your immediate area?
Yeah.
Whenever you could have an online store and you could sell to the entire planet.
Right.
Is that more difficult? Hell yeah, it's more difficult.
Yeah.
But why would somebody shop at your store where you're going to have a very limited capacity when they could shop online at an unlimited capacity?
Yeah. I'm one of those old school, again, being the old guy that I am, I'm the old school guy. I love to just go in and touch feel. Like I do a lot of online shopping, but I don't like it because I really like to physically see what I'm buying.
Well, I think
that's just us old people. I think it's just us old people.
That's 100%. I mean, I'm the same way, and I think everybody's that way. But if you've noticed, there's becoming a lot more, especially with the clothing. I just got a new pair of glasses, and Warby Parker, I think is how you pronounce the brand. You go online, you have to give them your credit card, but I don't think they charge you, and they send you like 5 or 6 frames to try on.
Yeah.
And then you pick whichever one you like. You get to touch it, you get to feel it, you get to put it on your face, see how it looks. You're like, this is what I want. You send it back. It's totally free, and then they make the glasses for you.
Very cool.
Amazon with you buy it, like especially with clothes, they have where I think it's like free. It's just free returns. And we all know about free returns on Amazon Prime, but you buy it, you try it on, you don't like it, you send it back. They'll send you a new one. Like that stuff is becoming more and more common. And I think a lot of people are just going to order it.
Yeah. Online commerce has come a long way. It really has. I mean,
remember the days of like ordering something, it would take like 2 to 3 weeks to get.
2 to 3 weeks. And it was like, when it got there, if you hated it, it was yours. You owned it.
Yeah, you're screwed. Or you had to like,
it's going to cost you the amount of the item to return it. It's like, I bought a microwave online and it cost me $200 to ship it back. So I'm going to keep it. I'm just going to keep it.
I might as well. Yeah. I remember the very first online order I ever placed was with Nike.com.
Yeah.
This was like 1999, 2000 or something. And I remember being so nervous, like typing in the credit, because I had to use my parents' credit card. And then I was like, I'll pay you right after. I have the cash. I don't remember what I ordered, but it took like literally 3 weeks to get to my house.
You're like wearing your barefoot, running around, waiting on these shoes to come in.
Yeah, I need my shoes. Now I don't know how it is in Tulsa, but here in Orlando, all the time, if I buy stuff by like noon, Amazon delivers it by the end of the day.
Yeah. And that's how my wife's always like, what did you buy? What did you buy? Because we have nonstop deliveries just showing up at our door nonstop. And I'm like, I don't even remember at this point, like, because I'll buy stuff for the bug, I'll buy stuff for the business, I buy stuff for her, my son. I'm like, I don't even remember what I bought. Like whatever shows up, just open it. And it's Christmas daily. Every day it's a new Christmas present. Just open it up, find out what it is, who it belongs to, throw it out, and it's insane how fast it is now with the commerce online. And
Yeah.
I honestly, I do like going physically to a store. I just like walking around, like going, my wife's like kind of drives her crazy. Like I'm the aisle to aisle guy. Everybody has their
Do
shopping
you like
patterns.
Lowe's? Are you a Lowe's guy?
Yeah, but I've gotten bored with Lowe's because of being in construction. I know where every single thing is. I know, I can tell you, you'll be like, I need a certain kind of super glue or so.
Yeah, aisle 15, about halfway down on the right.
Yep. And it's funny because I'm friends with all the ones that are local Lowe's over here, the managers and everybody, and they know me. And they're like, why won't you apply up here? Like, because I'll be in the line checking out and somebody will be like, do you know where blah, blah, blah? And I'll yell it before
and you'll be like, yep, hey, I do. Yep. I have literally had that.
Yeah. And
I do like, a lot of
they look
home
at me
improvement
like,
stuff.
How in the heck does he know that? But it's one of those, like, most men, we're always like, men, we go into shop, we know what we want, we get in, we get out. That's always been the cliche
not
thing.
At Lowe's.
Oh no way. And then and now I've become the guy. The older I get, like I go in any store. Even if I went there yesterday, I come in and I got to go aisle to aisle and see every single thing on each aisle. Unless it's a grocery store.
Because you're actually seeing stuff now. You actually get to see and touch, and it becomes more and more rare.
And my wife, like, she's like, are we doing aisle to aisle today, or are we actually going in to get what we wanted? And I'm like, well, we'll do it your way today, but next time we got to go aisle to aisle.
You got to get the experience. Now it's about the shopping experience.
But this pandemic's, it's woken me up on a lot of different fronts. I'm sure with you as well in your industry. First off, your industry and any digital marketing industry through the pandemic is obviously doing a lot better because that's just kind of what it's designed for, to meet those needs. But what's been profound for me is watching the changes, watching how people handle the changes. A lot of people aren't good, like you just mentioned about change. A lot of people just aren't comfortable with change. And especially when it's very abrupt and it's not in their control. Nobody has control over our local states shutting down, and people are just in a panic and a frenzy and creating more stress and anxiety than they need to.
But I think it's natural human emotion to be scared of change.
Yeah.
But so we talked pre-show about stoicism.
Yeah.
I'm no stoic by any means, but I study it a little bit, and what it teaches you is like with the fear of change. Like, everybody has that. It doesn't matter. Like nobody's like immune to that fear.
Yep.
It's about just simply recognizing the fear, acknowledging it. And like stoicism taught me to do that. So when things are scary and changes are coming, like I fear it too. Like I'm scared of that stuff too, but I recognize, and I always try to think, am I being logical about this, or am I being emotional? And logically, everybody knows that things change, and things are changing faster and faster. And in general, not 100% of the time, but in general, 90% of the time, change is good.
Yes.
Like the fact that you can get online and you can order groceries and not have to go to the grocery store, and in like 2 hours, Whole Foods delivers your groceries. That's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Is it good for everybody? No. Is every change good? No. But generally, these changes are good. But emotionally, you can get caught up and be like, well, that's so scary.
Right.
Well, yeah, but like you just need to think logically and be like, you know what? Logically, this is a good thing. Logically, change is going to continue. So I always have to be adaptable to these changes and recognize that even if I adapt to this new world, in the future, it will change. Like, that's 100% guaranteed.
Yeah. One thing history tells us is nothing is going to stay the same. It's
nothing,
just not. Yeah. There's nothing that's going to stay static throughout our society. It's going to, in some way, evolve or change into something or morph into something different.
But generally speaking, that progress is is not a straight line.
Yeah.
You will have ups and downs, but generally speaking, we are heading in a, things continue to get better and better. So that's, I just always, if I'm feeling that fear, which again, with stoicism, like you recognize the fear. It's you're not hiding it. You're not getting rid of it. You recognize it. And I just always remind myself that, like, generally speaking, this is good. Generally speaking, we're heading in the positive direction, and I got to adapt to it. And in the future, I'll continue to have to adapt. So It's just part of
what is now we always, and I discussed this a little bit with you before the show. We really use this platform to encourage not just self-help and self-improvement, but we encourage a lot of mental health stability, different aspects. You spoke about meditation and stuff, and that's one avenue. What is some advice you could maybe give to the audience that kind of not just has helped you through this pandemic, but maybe has helped you through life, that has gotten you through some hard times? Maybe advice that you would give to others. I was just talking the other day with one of the guests on the show. This year alone, I've lost 8 people, overdoses and suicides, nonstop, just never ending. It seems like with a lot of the guys I grew up with and people I grew up with. Just last night, I get a message from one of my friend's mothers that he was literally having a conversation with her and dropped to the floor, cardiac arrest. He is now brain dead. She will be taking him off life support Friday.
Sorry to hear that, man.
It's tough. And this is a good buddy of mine. I've had a lot of losses this year. One of my good friends and neighbor, just generally right across the street over here, just a really good guy, shot himself. I had to go in there and kind of deal with that, walked in there and saw the mess and kind of had to deal with that in the middle of right in the middle of the pandemic, right in the middle of the summer.
Oh, that's great.
and so, it's one of those things where and I encourage, and I talk a lot about this on the show is we never know where people are at in life. Mm-hmm. Me and you can be walking through a store, just pass each other, give a nod, give a hello, whatever. I always encourage everybody on the show, for one, give a smile, give a nod, hold a door for somebody. If you're in a drive-through, buy the car behind you's meal while you're paying for yours and drive off. There needs to be no recognition. Just thanks. Do it. Yep. It's literally the little things like that. But, you never know when someone's, let's say, in a domestic abuse situation and you're walking into a convenience store, you hold that door for that person, give them a smile. How's your day going? That's it. That might have been enough to take that woman or man out of an abusive spouse that just beat them at home. There's just little things that we don't realize, depression, anxiety, that people in not just the pandemic, but in their general life before the pandemic are dealing with. Mm-hmm. What are some things you can give, just kind of some outlets or things that you've used to overcome some of the hardships or down times in your life?
Sure. So I would 100% agree with what you said. But, we are all, and it's becoming harder to see because, especially with politics, the world is just becoming so divided. And we always think that everybody's an enemy. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, most people are good.
Yep.
Generally speaking, most people want the same things. Generally speaking, we all want better futures for ourselves, for our families. So I think that would be the one thing that I would say is just keep that in mind. Like even if you're the most hardcore liberal versus the most hardcore conservative, probably 90% of the shit we all agree on.
You're right. Yeah.
We're not enemies. We're all in this shit together. So a little bit of kindness would probably be a good thing and go a long way. And I think showing some compassion, and like you mentioned, man, it could be opening the door for somebody. It could be, you see somebody. I've had this happen. I've been like Walmart or something, and somebody forgot their credit card, and it's an old lady or whatever. Just pay for it, dude. If you have the resources, just small, simple, stupid shit. We're all in this together. We're, no matter what. So I think just keep that in mind. It's probably always a good thing. And that certainly has helped me. I would say that. Another thing is like you mentioned about the domestic abuse or depression or whatever. Realize that every single person you see, 100% of us, we're all fighting our own battles.
Yep.
It could be depression. It could be, a diet issue, health issue. It could be a bad relationship. It could be maybe your parents are sick or your child is sick, or you just walked in on, your neighbor kills themselves, like I think you said, or your friend dies. We're all going through shit. We're all facing our own battles, and don't get upset about shit. As best as you can. Like what I always think of is you know, when somebody like cuts you off in traffic and you're sitting there, and I used to be this way 100%. Used to be that crazy radical 16-year-old kid, like, fuck you. I'm like, move, bitch, get out of my way.
Yep.
Yes, I was that kid. And I think we all were at one point. But, you know, you're on the highway and somebody cuts you off, like, just take a second and be like, maybe that dude's late for work. Maybe he just lost his job 2 weeks ago. And, you know, something happened and he's on his way to an interview. Or maybe he's on the way to a hospital to see his loved one for the last time. Or maybe he's just a fucking dick. Yeah.
And if he is, let him be that guy. Let him be the dick.
Let him be the dick. But just maybe for a moment, give that dude the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Not just for his sake, but maybe for your own mental health. Like, don't hold all that aggression in and realize, like, maybe that dude's going through some shit. Maybe her boyfriend beats her. Yeah. Like, which is bad.
Right.
But, like, we're all going through shit, man. So, things that have helped me, I think just all that stuff that I just mentioned, just recognizing that and just realizing that we're all going through shit. Realize that another one thing that I've always kind of reminded myself is similar to, like, you know, more generally speaking, always heading in a positive direction, is nothing lasts. So this too shall pass. Like, the hardest thing you've ever gone through, you will find a way through it. So I always remind myself of that. Like, this is not as bad as it seems, and this too shall pass. And at the end of the day, hell, at least we'll end up with a good story, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, the best stories you have are probably the worst shit that you went through.
And for me, it really is. You know, I could tell some crazy stories because I've lived through some real crazy stuff. But at the end of the day, the journey, you know, I remember growing up, a lot of people saying, you know, you got to enjoy the journey, you know, from point A to point C. And a lot of people don't. They ignore B. They just try to get right to C. And I lived that way for a long time. I was just a big adrenaline junkie. It was all about getting here to here and not stepping back and enjoying the view. And then
enjoy the ride, man.
Exactly. And then we hear exactly what you just said is, like, you know, where you're at this moment will not be a year from now. You know, this too shall pass. You know, I used to hear all these things and be like, man, whatever you guys are talking about, you don't know what I'm going through. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of self-reflection. And I think you touched on it earlier about, emotion, the I over E thing. You know, that's really what it boils down to. Are you feeding and leading your life with emotion, or are you feeding and leading with intellect? Are you actually thinking things through with common sense and logic, or are you actually just engaging the fact of how you feel and making action of that? And sometimes that kind of festers and feeds on the depression and feeds on the I guess the poor choices that can come out of that.
I would add one of the things, you know, you brought up the this too shall pass thing again. You also need to remember that in the good times too.
Yes.
Like,
correct.
Even whenever you're like the happiest moments, like
living in the moment
and realize that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Like, hard times will come. Yeah. The rain will
soak
come
up
eventually.
And enjoy as much of the good as you can.
And that will cause you, exactly, to soak it up and to have appreciation and be like, you know, this to appreciate it, man, which I think we all probably would be really served by that one. I think the last thing I'll mention with mental health is don't compare your chapter 3 to somebody else's chapter 42.
Right.
We naturally compare ourselves to others, and I think that's really unhealthy.
It is.
You don't know that person's circumstances. Maybe they got lucky. Maybe they were in the right place at the right time. And this is most common with money or business or whatever. But maybe they were just in the right place at the right time. I think instead of comparing to others, you just simply want to self-reflect and be like, am I putting in as much effort? And am I working as hard as I possibly can? Am I doing the best that I can? This doesn't have to necessarily just do with business. This can be with your relationships. You know, people will compare and be like, oh, that couple was so in love or whatever.
Yeah.
But you don't know the shit that they've gone through.
Right. Yeah.
You don't know what happens behind closed doors. Don't compare your chapter to their chapter because your story is different.
Yes.
Look at, am I putting in as much effort? Am I doing the best that I possibly can?
Yeah.
And if the answer to that is yes, then thumbs up, good job.
Yeah.
You're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
But if the answer is no, then hey, that's a good thing. You're recognizing that I can do better and I can move in a positive direction.
Yeah.
So,
and I think a lot of, like I just mentioned, self-reflection, taking time to self-assess, and that's goes in the business world as well. You can run a business and model a business and get it up and operating, but every day there should be, or at least, you hear about the monthly meetings or the weekly meetings. There's a time to assess and see, is everything working the way it's supposed to work? And you always are assessing these things and reflecting on them. And that should be our personal journey as well. And I totally
100%.
love what you said about not comparing, because each one of us walks an individual walk. We're viewing things from a perspective that is only our perspective. And so we can't really compare what we are going through and what someone else is going through, but we can assess every day, like you said, am I giving it my all? Am I lacking in these avenues? And if so, how can I improve those? For me, like we talked about earlier, it was one of those for me to look in the mirror and just say, these are things I agree with in my life. These are things I don't like about in my life or myself. And these are things I can either embrace or remove from my life. And that's kind of where I went with things. And so we always need to self-assess and kind of reflect on things throughout our journey. And sometimes in our society, we get to the point where we are too busy reflecting and assessing others. And we draw that into ourselves, as you said, as a comparison. And I think if we focus more on self-assessment versus the criticism or the reflection we see in other people, because we are not the people we see. We got to really look at ourselves. And I think for some people, for me, that was one of my biggest fears in life. And I've mentioned this on the show before, is the hardest thing for me to deal with was to look in the mirror and look at myself. And for some people, it's the same thing. That's only look at other people.
Thing to do.
It is. And for some people, they can only look at other people and make comparisons. They don't want to look at what they have as a mess in front of them.
Yeah, I 100% think that's extremely important, is being honest with yourself, looking in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
But I talked before about, maybe having a little bit of compassion. I think you need to have compassion with other people. I think that's mission critical for a happy and successful life. Like, try to put yourself in their shoes, and you don't know the battles that they're facing. You don't know what goes on behind closed doors in their life. You don't know the challenges that they're facing. Try to show a little bit of compassion for other people, but at the same time, also maybe show some compassion for yourself too.
Yeah. Self-care.
Yeah. Don't, there's, people make fun of that and say like, oh, that's such a wimpy thing, but I think it's a better way. You need to walk the fine line. You want to be tough on yourself and be like, I'm going to challenge myself and I'm going to push myself. But at the same time, you don't want to take it too far, and you don't want to push yourself and then beat yourself down to where you're feeling negative.
Right.
If you did a workout or a athletic competition and you didn't win, like, it's okay to be like, damn it, push myself harder next time. Like, that's probably a positive thing. Yeah. But if you're like, you loser, and like, then you start thinking like negative thoughts.
Yeah,
like, that's probably a bad thing.
Thinking plays such a major part in, you hear about people with depression, suicide. Self-talk has so much of a play and a role in success. I don't know too many successful business people that just are talking down to themselves constantly. It's always a positive. Yeah, it's got to be a positive vision. You've got to be encouraging, not just of others and your team, but of yourself.
Or if they do talk down to themselves, they're miserable fucks.
Yeah, and it's recognizable. It's right away.
Everybody's like,
it's that first
guy,
impression. Yeah.
He's rich, but he's a miserable fuck, and nobody likes him.
It's that first impression thing. You're like, holy, what a dickhead he is.
Yes,
it's very, very obvious.
Sure, they might have money or whatever.
Yeah,
that's no way to live.
No, because deep down there's just a dark, miserable person in there, and
again, you don't know what their battles are.
Yeah, and not wanting to be. Nobody is born and wakes up each day with just wanting to be miserable. There's things going on. we all want to succeed.
We all
want
generally
happy.
speaking want the same things.
Yeah, we all want to be happy and succeed, and to be able to produce for our families, and at the same time have healthy relationships with others. That's to me, that's kind of been my journey. That's kind of been one of my key goals is building upon relationships with other people, learning how to continue to keep healthy relationships. When I was younger, I didn't. I was very good at sabotaging relationships. And that was with it could be a spouse, girlfriend, fiance, or it could just be my friends. There came a point in my life where, no joke, my friends were like, dude, you're not invited to the party. You remember you remember last weekend, Dean, when you came to my house for the keg party and you grabbed the keg, beat up 3 guys and ran out and threw it in your truck and drove off and went home and drank it by yourself. Do you remember that?
We don't want to party with you anymore.
And I'm like, wait a minute, did I do that? And they're like, yeah, the keg's, sitting in your front yard, dude. And I'm like, man, I was a jerk. I was a jerk. Like, what was the point of that? And there was a time period, like for about a year of my life, where like all my friends were like, no, you're just not welcome to come over. You're not. If we see you, you invite us somewhere, we may or may not show up, but you are not welcome to come hang out at the parties we go to anymore, because you got to get yourself under control. and it wasn't even like there, man. Yeah, and that wasn't even me drinking.
I never stole the keg though.
That wasn't even me that wasn't even me drinking. That was just who I was at that time, period. Even if I woke right up, I was just a jerk. And it was like, I look back at that, I reflect on that, and I'm like, that's not the person I want to be. That's not the person I ever wanted to be. And again, that took a lot of self-assessment and reflection on why was I this idiot?
Most of the time, like when I look back, it was like you had deeper anger issues, or
and that's
weren't positively dealing with stuff, and
healthy ways to cope.
Healthy ways to cope. And like, again, that stuff, like people look down on that stuff still, and they're like, oh, you're so weak for talking about mental health. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're a dick. And you know why you're a dick? Probably because you're so negative. And
I have friends of mine to this day that I've known 30 plus years. They will call me and they're still sitting on bar stools and they're still miserable, and they'll call me and they'll start in with like, hey, I need a little bit of advice. And I'll start talking to them, and they'll literally go into the whole like, oh, you just softened up, blah blah blah, blah. And I'm like, who is calling who for advice? Who's still sitting on the same bar stool they drank on 30 years ago out of high school? Who wants help here? Let's talk about the real issues here. I've taken time to man up and assess things in my life. You're still drinking your sorrows away and then blaming other people for it. Let's talk about it. And the truth is,
it's tougher to face that shit in the mirror.
Yeah.
It's tougher to show somebody compassion.
Mm-hmm.
It's tougher to forgive somebody. When that dick pulls out in front of you on the highway, it is much easier to say, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
Slam on your horn and throw the bird, cut him off, try to run him off the road. Do shit like that is a lot easier than it is to just be like, maybe that guy's going through some shit.
Yeah, he's having a bad day. Not my problem.
Have a good day, sir.
Yeah.
And yes, I argue that's the tough man stuff to do. It's tougher to forgive people that have different wants and needs than us. Mm-hmm. It's easier to, again, I mentioned politics. It's easier to say those damn conservatives or those damn liberals, like screw those people. It's a lot tougher to just say, maybe they have a reason to think the way they think. Mm-hmm. Maybe they have a point. Right. Maybe we're not that far off.
Yeah.
Maybe we should show them some compassion.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That stuff is a lot harder.
Yeah, and it's environmental in anything too. It's what are these, like you said, what do these people surround themselves with? Where are they getting their information from? If I'm living in a world where my information is fed to me in a certain way, I'm gonna just believe that way. It's kind of like organized religion. If you're born into a religion and you're raised in that religion and you know nothing else but that religion, and then you get picked up and put into like the jungle in Africa in the middle of a tribe community, you're gonna be like, holy moly, what is this? This is crazy. It's environmental, it's also what information you're allowing in. I call it mind garbage. It's kind of like when I watch the TV, it's kind of the same thing, the trash box. It's sometimes you can turn things on for entertainment, and sometimes things that are entertainment can just give you bad information. And that bad information, some people, it gets stuck in their head, and it becomes.
Do you watch the news?
I do, because I'm a journalist as well. Add that to my resume. So I do. As a journalist, I do watch the news. Unfortunately, the media drives me crazy, because what I find is, like, for example, when we started off, I was like, well, I wonder who wrote this article, right? And you were like, well, can you find who wrote it? And I'm scrolling down. A lot of people don't even know where to find the sources in articles these days.
Yeah.
And so I'm immediately like, yeah, let me find who wrote this. What aggravates me the most in media these days, in journalism, that aggravates me in the industry, is you can almost never nowadays find a cited source. Like literally and when I say cited source, I don't mean the author, I don't mean the editor, I don't mean the media outlet. I mean, they will put information in an op-ed piece, and they will say certain things are factual.
Sources said this and this.
But there's never a citation as to where the individual, can go find the information they are discussing and put it to paper, and it's a fact. And the problem we have is like you said, I mean, we have the far left, the far right, everybody's arguing. At the end of the day, it's a big cloud to me here. And this is just my perspective, in my opinion. It's a big cloud of mess, where I see it as both sides are a failure. And I don't mean both sides of the people themselves. I think the people have been fooled and kind of fed information that's not good. But what I see on both sides is two parties failing. That's what I see. I see a failure in our government, and we've allowed these people to be the government. We've put them in place. You hear people talk about voting people, vote them out at the ballot box. We don't have to wait to vote people out at the ballot box. There is processes set up. If you don't like a person and a politician, and he does something that's against the law or against what the constituents want, those constituents can remove him before the election. The problem is, the people have been ingrained to believe it can only happen during elections. And so we continue to allow our government to build into this corrupt, weird mess that it is. But the media, to me, has become just, again, propaganda. We hear these terms thrown around all the time, more than ever now. But if you travel, and I'm sure you've traveled, overseas and stuff, you travel to some of these other countries, where China, Hong Kong, these other countries, where you literally see the media is feeding these people what they want. The government's feeding the people what they want them to see. There's not a free press in a lot of these nations. North Korea is the first one that comes to mind. If you're in North Korea, which we don't know a lot, that's very shielded from society. But what's going on in North Korea? Those people in North Korea are, like we just talked about, it's like being an organized religion. They live in a different
version.
Yeah, their life is like organized religion. That's all they know is what they've been taught in North Korea. So the media has become this machine that, again, will not cite sources. They can put out any information they want without having any accountability to where that information came from, or even telling me, the reader, where it came from, so I can research it myself. And so for me, I came out of high school as a Democrat. My first time voting, get my voting card, I came out of high school, I was a Democrat. My grandmother, my mother, all of them voted Democrat. I was going to be the Democrat of the family too. And for many years I was. And that changed probably, I want to say maybe in my 30s is where I started kind of like getting a little more interested in what's going on in our political world. And I kind of started looking, and then I changed my party to Republican. Honestly, at that time, I didn't know why. I just kind of was like, I don't want to be a Democrat, I'll be a Republican. And there really was no a title of, oh, look, he's a conservative now. I just did it because I didn't see the policies lining up with my lifestyle. And so I was like, I don't really want to be a Democrat. I think I'll be a Republican. I'm a Republican now. But you know what? As a Republican, I see the Republican Party as a failure. Plain and simple. I don't see either one of these parties doing anything for you, my family. The policies and the arguing back and forth across the aisle, getting nothing done. They're arguing now for the COVID package. So we're waiting on a COVID package. They're arguing over who's going to open the taxpayer's wallet and hand the taxpayers money out of their own wallet. And this has been going on how many months? And there's still low-income families that are struggling. And we have to sit back. Yeah. And we have to sit back and watch the news and the media and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and what's the other guy, McConnell. We get to watch these guys do these press conferences, and we're going, okay, but we hear you guys talking politics and political theater, but there's no action ever. And there's no accountability when you guys are called out or found in corrupt platforms. And those are the things for me right now with the media. The reason these literally my press passes are sitting up here is because I haven't used them. I won't even book to go do certain events or even do stories anymore. I'm kind of a little disgraced at the media right now. I'm kind of like, I'm not sure I even want to hold my credentials anymore because they've given it such a bad name.
See, I don't believe that it's necessarily the actual people in the media. I believe
I don't either.
So I look at it like, go back 40 years.
Yeah.
Go back to when I was born. All right. Where did most people get their news? They turned on their local news station. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, their local news station couldn't really get political because it's broadcast to a whole bunch of people. There's only like one or two news stations.
Yep.
So they don't want to piss people off. They want to get viewers. Like that's naturally what they want to do. They got to get the ratings. They're a for-profit business. So they would just report the news. They would report it and try to be as bipartisan, just remove. They're not going right. They're not going left. They're just, this is the story.
Yeah. Middle ground, and have a couple feel-good stories.
This is why, the newspaper endorsements used to be such a big deal. They still are, but they used to be a massive deal because newspapers needed to be very, there was no political affiliation, generally speaking, unless there was some in like big cities like Chicago might have multiple newspapers, or New York City would have multiple newspapers. But like where I'm from, there was one newspaper.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't go either way because they don't want to piss a bunch of people off. And then you would have the editorials where they could get political, but hey, this is an editorial. This isn't news.
Give our opinion here. Yeah.
This is an opinion piece. But what has happened is now, you can go to Breitbart. Breitbart will never say a positive thing about Obama or Biden or any Democrat ever.
Yep.
They will only talk positive about Trump and Republicans. Okay. Yeah. I don't know there are Democrat equivalents. I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
So, this certainly goes on both sides of the aisle.
Oh, definitely.
But what has happened is now people have the ability to live in an information echo chamber where they only hear positive things about their political party. And why do they only hear that? Because it feels better to hear that than to hear, oh, maybe Trump said something stupid, or hey, maybe Biden said something stupid, or maybe this policy is a bad idea. It is much better to just hear, oh, you're a Republican? We're Republicans too. And Republicans only do positive things.
I get to hear what I want to hear.
What you want to hear. That wasn't an option 30 years ago.
Right.
You couldn't choose to hear what you want to hear. Social media really accelerated that, obviously.
For sure.
Now you can get on there and like the algorithm will only show you shit that's going to make you more excited,
more fueled up, get everything going.
And it's all about engagement and being somebody that actually like, I know how that stuff works because that's the industry I work in. Like it is. I said recently in an interview that I feel that social media is the most powerful thing that humanity has developed since the atom bomb.
Yeah.
It has the ability to rip us apart.
It has a larger impact.
You go back 30 years ago, everybody wants information about what's going on in the world. We all want that. You go back 30 years ago and you were exposed to, relatively speaking, like an unfiltered truth. Like, the president said this, or this policy was passed. Now you have the option to go to Breitbart and you will never hear anything negative about your stuff because it's much easier to hear that. That social media, that shit is scary. And like I said earlier, like I know I'm from a very Republican conservative area. I'm a very liberal person. But I can tell you right now, like I know people who are like hardcore Trumpers.
Yeah.
Their wants and needs and desires in their life are pretty much the same as mine.
Yep. Yeah.
We're
And
all like 95% of
and
us
I've
are
said it on the
95%
show
similar.
before, like just because I'm a listed Republican, a lot of my policy views, like the way I really think about things, are very, very in touch with liberal. You know, as far as like the climate and our planet and things like that, like I'm very in tune with that. I agree that there's things that need to be in place and changed. So I totally align with a lot of those policies. When you get into the budget side of it, I kind of cringe a little bit on like how much we're going to spend and why we're going to throw money at something. But at the end of the day, like I do align with a lot of my Democratic background when I was, I do like a lot of the things that their policies say. But to me, it's funny. A friend of mine said, he goes, "It's okay to align with both parties."
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa,
that's
mind
becoming
blown.
more.
We're allowed to think for ourselves.
Yeah, then that's becoming more and more of a radical idea. But like at the end of the day, dude, like what do you probably want for the future? You probably want a better life for yourself.
Yeah.
You probably want your kid to have a better life than you. You probably want your kids to have a better education, have
and it doesn't
opportunities.
require a party line or title.
It doesn't require a party
We
line.
all
Like we
want
all
that.
want this shit. You
Yeah.
probably want less crime, and you probably want peace, and you probably want a clean air and clean water, and probably a good environment and a good economy. And like you probably have a problem with homeless people, and like we shouldn't have homeless people in this country. And like sick people should probably get health care. Like everybody agrees on that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really to me, it's after we're in the year 2020 and it's a no-brainer. You know, why are we even having these policy arguments, and why is there even this type of division when as a nation and as a society worldwide, these problems have been discussed since before me and you were born. And here we are at 2020, and we have a two-party political system that is not addressed either of it. And we're all fighting over which one should take the lead. And it's like, no, wait, we've had over 100+ years of these people. None of them have solved anything. So why can't we just come to a point of agreement where it's time to just not fall for the political party line as much as it is as a nation, we come together and solve it. And maybe we, the people, need to step above where we've placed our government.
I think coming from the marketing world, it's crystal clear to me.
Yeah.
The best way to fire up a base to get people excited is to polarize an enemy.
Yes.
We are here.
Yep.
And the enemy is here.
Us and them.
And us and them. That is the best way to get a base, to get a fan group, to get people excited. Polarize the enemy. And by what I mean by that is you have an enemy, they're over here, and then you try to make every little thing that is different, you try to make it as far apart as possible. They're lazy, we work hard. They're broke, we have money. We're white, they're brown, or they're Asian. I mean, we're Christian, they're other religion. I mean, literally every little thing that you can do. When the truth is there's probably like, again, 99.
Yeah, you could almost put them all together and they all agree.
And at the end of the day, dude, we're all Americans.
Yeah.
And you want to get global? We're all human.
Yeah. Like, and at the end of the day, that's how I think, is like, we're all one. We're all one.
I care about the person in England who doesn't have health care.
Yeah.
Or because they have universal health. That's not a case. But I care about the homeless person in England. Do I think that we were all in this shit together? Yeah. So like, I don't think that there should be a single homeless person in this country. I don't give a damn if you're Republican or Democrat.
Yeah.
I want both of them to be taken care of. And at the end of the day, dude, like 95% of us all agree on that shit. I think the only hope that we have is close to where you were going with it is we need to polarize the enemy. The enemy is not each other.
Right.
The enemy is those trying to divide us.
Yeah. The machine that's been created.
We are all together.
Yeah.
Republicans, Democrats, Green Party, liberals, conservatives, Christians, Jews, Muslims, we're all together. We're all in this together. We are the people. The enemy is not each other.
Right.
The enemy is those in charge who are trying to divide us.
Yeah. And
that's the enemy.
Yeah. And it's back to the whole, like, why do I want to argue with my neighbor because he's on a different party line? I don't understand. Like, I get the reason behind it, but it's I still every day I'm like, I'm ashamed to even hold my credentials and go, I'll put on my little lanyard and go to a press op. And I'm like, oh, and I'm standing next to some guy who's asking some really silly questions. And this guy on this side's asking some really silly questions and then throwing back some crap. And I'm like, I just really wanted to report on this. I didn't really need to make it political on this side. I didn't really need to make it about, an agenda on this side. I really was just trying to make, report on an issue in our community.
Get the facts out there.
That's it. And I miss the feel good news. I think that's what it is. I miss that, great story.
And most people do, man.
Yeah, because
that's what I want. They're sick and tired of turning on the news, whether it's Fox News or Breitbart or MSNBC or whatever the equivalent on the left of Breitbart is. They're sick and tired of turning that shit on, and it's just fucking negative.
Yeah.
People they realize that, like, wow, the world isn't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of want it to be a little bit better.
Yeah. And I don't think I don't think there's anybody that's raising their hand and going, I wish the world would go to hell. No,
nobody.
It's like, I don't want my house to burn down. I don't want, I don't want all those things for my neighbor. Hey, it is what it is. But, we do, I do a lot of lives on my Facebook, on the Two Party Podcast Facebook. And I just basically do news breakdowns and stuff on there. I do them occasionally on Instagram too. But that's what I do. I literally just go through the news headlines, and it's exactly what you just said. It's that just total negative vibe. I mean, I can read these headlines and it's like consistently, you can go headline to headline without even having to read the article. And it's just like, you can see the agenda. Like you said, Breitbart, it's going to be pro-Trump. This one's going to be pro whatever. And it's like, that's great if like you said, a little echo chamber, if I just want to hear myself think. But at the end of the day, like, I really shoot for the what's the facts, what's really behind the scene of what I don't want to see the op-ed. I want to see the citation of where you got that information, because that's going to determine to me, back in the day, this shows how old I am. Back in the day when I wanted to find a story, I'd go to my local town hall. I'd go to the clerk's office. Wow. And I would search microfiche records to find articles and facts.
Are those like the
little tiny films?
Of
little
like the
tiny,
newspaper.
like, it looks like a little picture film. And dude, we'd go through those at the courthouse.
Wow.
That's how old I am. And so at the end of the day, like, that's what it used to take to be a journalist, is you really had to dig through archives. And when I say archives, it isn't like we think about online. We could just go look at archive files online. You had to go to a physical, you go to a small town to report a story in a small town. You had to go to their clerk's office. You had to go look through town records, and you were going through this. You had this big machine, like this looked like a projector, and it literally, you'd have these little, what was called microfiche. You couldn't read them with your eyes, but you put them in the machine and it magnifies it. And you'd scroll through thousands of pages of town history to get one story on one family of one individual to get to the facts. And you just don't have that. Nowadays, I can hop on got my press credentials, therefore I'm a journalist. I can hop on and write anything I want and just put my name and then put op-ed at the bottom, and it's good. Done deal. And unfortunately, to me, it's a real disservice to my audience to do that. It's a disservice for me not to mention it's an op-ed. A lot of them don't. And it's a disservice to, like you were saying, to just feed information that's party line. If I'm just going to talk about this party and promote this party, I'm not being a fair journalist. At the end of the day, and the journalist that only looks for the bad stuff, like we now, of course, we're hearing about the Hunter Biden's now being investigated for taxes. So if I'm the guy that's looking for, like, oh, there we go, that's the story, I'm going to put that one up. And I'm the guy that only reports on the bad stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. To me, like, it takes the integrity away from the whole industry.
I agree.
And it doesn't help feed proper information to my audience or to people that want real news. So yeah, it's just crazy the political environment we live in. And like you said, change, we talked about earlier, change. This is all going to change. Doesn't matter who the president becomes. At the end of the day, it's going to change. Whoever this president is, it's going to change after this president. The changes he makes will be changed by the next person. It's not about it's not about who the president or the face of our nation is. It's about what our nation as a whole and as a people do. And if we all sit back and argue and argue over political lines, but we're not willing to step up and actually do things for our nation, our homeless, people that are in low income that have struggles right now, if we're not willing to step up, people that are sick, if we're not willing to step up to those challenges, we are no greater than the people that are leading us and holding our taxpayer wallet hostage. Here, we got to pay taxes. You guys hold our tax money, but you won't give it back to us when we need it. What's the point of paying into these different funds that this money is earmarked for if we cannot just dish it out and you guys hash out the problems that you're dealing with? It's really sad. I'll tell you what. I
think we should end on if you're ready to end, I think I would end on, I still am optimistic, man. I still believe we live in a democracy. We're blessed with that. I still, everything is shit right now. Everything is a dumpster fire, but I still feel, progress is not a straight line.
Yeah.
And I think 10 years from now, it'll be better than what it was today. And 10 years after that, it will be better. We will have ups and downs. That is 100% guaranteed. But I remain optimistic in the world. I remain optimistic in our country. I remain optimistic in our people. I remain optimistic in democracy as a whole. Betting against... I said this in an article recently. Betting against the United States has never worked.
Never.
Not once.
No, not at all.
It's always been a bad bet of the long term to bet against us. So in the short term, you might get some gains if you go short. But long term, man, I still feel optimistic. I still feel positive, and I think we'll end up better than what we are.
I feel like looking at everybody else in the world as a whole, looking at all different countries and nations, and we are the only nation that has the Constitution that provides us freedom of speech. We have so many F words, and I call it F words as a freedom. We have so many freedoms that other countries, North Korea, as a prime example we just discussed, Africa, where there's literally children being handed firearms to go to war and dying in villages. There are so many things going on in different countries and worlds where there is zero freedom for humans that are living there, and we take that for granted here. But like you said, that's the things I focus on. That's what I look at as the positive, is we do live in the land of the free. We do have these freedoms, no matter what the media is telling us was being restricted or taken away from us. We still live in the land of the free. I can still wake up and do whatever I want in my house. I can wake up, go out and go to work. I can still provide for my family. I have an opportunity to do good things throughout my day. I have an opportunity to do bad things via freedom. Not that I encourage people doing bad things, but I have that freedom in our nation where you can't do that in another nation. Go to China and try to break some laws. You could very likely just be dead. It's that simple. So on a positive note, we really do live in one of the best countries in societies in the world. We're by no means perfect. Far from perfect. We have our own real issues here. But there is other countries and nations and human beings that are just being mistreated and treated in ways that nobody in 2020 should have to deal with.
Absolutely, man.
So, Dylan, it's been awesome having you on here, and I think we could probably
we
could just keep hitting topics. But I'm probably going to need some lunch, and I'm sure you got some things you got to do.
Here.
Yeah, I'm sitting here. I'm finishing off some pre-workout, so I'm like ready to go. It has been great having you here. I will definitely have you back as a guest in the future. We can hit on some.
I'd love to topics. You mentioned I've only done a few. I've done a ton of podcasts, but I've only done a few like live streams. Yeah, I love that shit. Like when you can actually get. I do a lot of webinars with my students, which is similar, but like being exposed to a different audience. So you mentioned that, man. If you do I'd love to do a live stream with your fan base and
for sure.
Your listeners. I think that'd be pretty cool.
We could hop on. Maybe we'll hop on one time on Instagram and do.
I've never done one of those.
Yeah, I love it. I've been actually. There's a comedian Bobby Sausalito, Bobby Sauce. I've been actually trying to get him on the show. We've been going back and forth. He used to do a lot of the roasts and stuff. He's really a cocky Italian dude, and so I've been going back and forth with this guy trying to get him on the show, and we've been messaging. He's giving me a hard time, kind of roasting me, and I'm in the messages like, hey, let's roast, let's do this. and I'm trying to get him right now on an Instagram live so we could just bash each other and just talk, and it's all on good terms. It's just, going at it with his, he's like, I'll avoid my PR. I'm going to deal with you. And it's just a funny conversation we've been having. But I'd love to have you on a live, dude. We could do a Facebook, we could do an Instagram live. I like going live because again, it's that whole unfiltered engagement. The audience gets to know you, me, conversation, how we are, and it makes it more personal for me to share. I love with the audience
answering just the random people's questions.
Yep.
And the few that I've done, because I envision the best shows are ones where the host is able to kind of think like, as a listener, if you're sitting there like, hey, I have this question.
Yep.
When the host asks those questions, like, that's the best shows. But the best thing is when the listeners can actually raise their hands and say, hey, I got this random question about this shit.
Have you ever listened to a podcast yourself, like listened to one and been like in the middle of the conversation, you're like, oh, he better ask him. He better ask him.
Yeah, please ask this question.
Like, oh, I want to know. And they move on and you're like, you're crushed.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity.
And it's like, so exactly. That's one of the awesome things about it is the audience can interact. They can ask questions of their own. And it makes it more personal to me. But it's been great talking with you. I definitely am going to have you back on, and we can get a little deeper into some of the seminars you do and the training,
sure.
Because that's initially what I'd like to really kind of present to the audience is some of the things you do where they can get in touch with you.
Or we could just talk politics.
Or we could, again, we could just talk politics or whatever. Again, we want to be able to be well-rounded and talk about everything. And I love discussing politics with some guests because it's like, sometimes they just turn white and they're like, he's going there. And sometimes it's like they're just like you. They can engage in the conversation. They understand that this is the world we live in, and politics are part of life right now. And we all have to accept that this is what it is. It's not about taking sides. It's about coming up with solutions. And for me, that's where it's at. Tell the audience real quick a few places they can reach you, a few places where they can get some more information about some of the training stuff you do and your digital media company.
Sure. So the digital marketing agency is Ogline Digital. So oglinedigital.com. But then my personal website is where I sell my training program, Agency 2.0. And the website's just dylanogline.com. And then you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook at Dylan Ogline.
Okay, perfect. And again, I encourage everybody to check Dylan out, check some of the stuff out that he's got going. Very talented. I've really enjoyed the conversation. It's great.
Absolutely, man. It was a long one. I like it.
It was. And I find myself more and more often like that's where I lead with these. Like I got a 60-minute slot, but when I really enjoy a conversation, I don't want to just cut it off. So I enjoy you having the extra time for me. For us to discuss, and hey, go get some lunch. I'm going to go do the same thing. We'll catch you on the next one.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me. It was a joy.
Yep. Have a great day.